There's a moment when children seem to forget their picture-making intuition. It's on the cusp of this shift from focus on free self-expression and observational drawing, observational or true representation that children encounter in their development around about the ages of 11, 12 and 13. So there's this moment when there is an intense focus. They choose an intense focus on trying to make a true representation of an object. And suddenly, this object exists in a free, open, white space. It's as if they've shed all their idea of creating a picture while they focus on the object. So as a teacher, I'm thinking about how to encourage their almost obsessive interest in true representations of objects, but still maintain our picture-making ability or acquire new picture-making skills. Very often as a teacher, I'm looking at trying to achieve a balance in every lesson between aspects of comfort for the children and enjoyment, things that they know how to do already, activities that they already enjoy, and using that as a foundation upon which to build a very, very new experience, often quite a challenging experience to stretch their understanding, to stretch their skills, and to stretch their experience. And turning that new experience, that challenge, into some sort of, I suppose it's a bit like a game. It's a bit like a challenging game. Can you do this? This is going to be difficult, but I think you're ready. So let's have a go and see what happens. So there's a sense of challenge, almost like a sports challenge. Can you reach this level of performance? But at the same time, being relaxed about taking risks, being relaxed about the fact that it's an experiment. Let's see what happens. Let's learn from what happens, and don't worry about mistakes. Don't worry about making pretty pictures. So when you look at pictures made by 7-year-olds, 10-year-olds, there's quite an unself-conscious picture making going on where the whole field of the paper or the board is covered, and they address this without really thinking about it. It's intuitive, very often highly symbolic positions at objects in that field, and they think about the whole space. And then they slip away from that, and it's how to bring them back to that, but in a new way. It's no good telling them, well, keep doing what you were doing, because already their focus has shifted on towards doing better than what they were doing before. They don't want to just imitate what they did a year ago as a younger child. They want to get better and better. So to give them some methods that link with the art world, and this is why the artist examples are important, to give them solutions from the art world, from other artists about, well, how did they think about creating a space around an object that relates to the object? So in this lesson, the idea of extending lines directly from the figure, from the shapes of the figure and from the chair, there's a logic to this. The background now is directly related to the object that I was focused on. And once that grid of lines is created in the picture space, then they find it very comfortable to work with color, work with their watercolors or their pastels or their crayons to create a color abstract composition within that space. That's a very natural and intuitive and self-expressive comfort space for them. And very often I'm trying to create open-ended situations rather than very prescriptive lessons where the outcome is certain and known and predictable. I'm creating a situation where there's a lot of free expression. The students have a lot of choice to interpret and embellish the instructions, and with quite precise but only a few guidelines to keep them heading in the right direction, but none of us know exactly where that is going to go. In a lot of my teaching, I'm experimenting as well. So the question of what will happen? how will the children handle this? What can I learn from the way they respond to it? The parts that they, get and tuned into, and the way they respond to the challenge aspect. How excited are they by this? How adventurous do they feel in really pushing themselves? How can the challenge aspect in the lesson help them develop self-awareness, an awareness of themselves as learners? So we talk in class about being a conscious learner, noticing what happens, noticing themselves, and noticing what happens in front of them, and looking at each other's work and seeing how others are handling this exercise and what ideas they're coming up with. See if they can learn from the example of others. We're very familiar with learning from the example of established artists, but I want the students to be very comfortable looking at each other's work as well. And very often in these classes, there's a group dynamic where they feed off each other, and they realize by noticing what one of their friends is doing, what is possible. So, with one of my classes, 12-year-olds, we did some very, very rapid-fire sketches of each other in class. So what I did is arranged all of the tables around the perimeter of the classroom, looking inwards, and they were given some quick challenges to draw or sketch, really, not to spend too long. We were looking at quite short durations, 10 seconds, 30 seconds, 2-minute sketches, to sketch the children across the room from them, sitting behind their tables, to focus on the people and a little bit of the furniture around them, not the whole room, and to very quickly try and get the posture, the expression of the figure. So we're not focusing on outlines as such, we're focusing on shape, expression of the figure. And this is quite fun. They enjoyed this, the comfort of sitting at a table and doing these sketches and looking across the room. The space was compact. But then we changed it up. So we took a short break and went into the hall next to the classroom, quite a large space. And here I talked about, can you use your eyes a little bit like a camera and observe a figure in movement? Watch closely this figure in movement and see if you can create a snapshot in your brain and then sketch that on the page. So focus on getting your eyes to see the figure moving. So the game aspect again, what I did was have one child at a time running backwards and forwards past the others in the hall, high speed. And I asked the children who were watching to stand with their sketch pads and to look at the figure and to look at the patterns that the figure made as they ran through the hall, and to choose one moment, one shape, and to create this freeze frame. So then I devised a lesson where they were going to sketch and draw a model seated on a chair on top of a table in the middle of the classroom. So we used this circular arrangement of their tables, looking into the center of the classroom, and we did a number of sketches, short sketches, so that they could get their eye in, and then 15-minute sketches, 15-minute drawings, where they could create a composition. And I asked them to be comfortable about putting the figure in the chair, to draw both, the figure in the chair, don't worry about the room, the figure in the chair in the middle of their page. And asked them to use a vertical orientation with their sheet of paper, so that the figure is sitting there, leaving the white space, because many of them, this is their comfort and natural mode when they're focusing on observational drawing. And then we took that white space and said, okay, so how can we create a composition here? And we used a few simple rules that then they could freely experiment with. And so I showed them how they can extend lines that already exist in the shape of the figure and the chair, extend these out into the space, out to the edges of the paper, extend or repeat some of these lines and the patterns, and then to develop a color composition around this. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to click like and share it. If you want to see more short videos with art tips, art projects and lesson ideas, please subscribe to my channel, Rob the Art Teacher.